Were you thinking to change your job or were already job hunting when we got hit by this, what is now classed as a global pandemic, COVID-19 coronavirus, and now you're not quite sure how it is going to affect your interview process? Then keep on watching, because in today's video I will give you some tips and updates on where the recruitment industry is heading and what companies are currently doing to fill in the positions. So more and more companies around the world are asking their employees to work from home during these days when infection is spreading quite rapidly. So as a result of this, recruiters and hiring managers have also been forced to move their hiring process online. So the most immediate change that we will most likely see is that the interview process will be moving from face-to-face to video interviews. And while this idea of the interview is still the same, video interviews differ quite a bit from face-to-face interviews. So with these changes taking effect, there are a few things that we can expect and few things to be aware of. So one of these is the time that the companies would take to make an offer, especially if they are hiring for a senior position. So while the companies do want to hire and fill in the open roles quite quickly, it is also imperative that they meet the person face to face. Again, it is even more so the more seniority the role has. And that might take significantly longer than it normally would. We might see companies doing a few rounds of video interviews to keep in touch with the candidates they like and waiting out until they can meet them in person. So the only exception to this rule is when you are applying for a remote position. Then video interviews are the only interviews that you would have. But the world of remote work has been using video interviews for a while, and it is a normal practice for them. So another difficulty that we can be facing with more traditional companies is that it might take longer to get all the stakeholders on board with the hiring decision. So especially the companies that haven't moved in the direction of agile and remote working and haven't got the processes in place will struggle the most due to the fact of them not being able to have the meetings regularly, and it will also increase the time that it will take to fill in the role. And what that means to you as a candidate is again a longer waiting time. But by the way, guys, how long was the longest recruitment process you have been a part of? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to know. How do you prepare for the video interview? Here are some tips that will help you to get ready and to breeze through the video interview. So the first one is do your research. Well, this one is not different from the traditional interview preparation stage, but the key here is to go deeper in your research and research not only the company itself, but also the people who will be interviewing you. The reason for this is because video interviews tend to be shorter than face-to-face interviews and they have less chit-chat in them. It is important to have topics of the conversation that you could talk about or casually bring it up with your interviewers. So it is even more important to form a personal connection with the interviewer. As I have talked about it in this video right here, the person who gets the job is not necessarily the one who has the best skills or experience, but who is the best cultural fit. So research your interviewer, look at their LinkedIn profile, maybe there is an article that they have written or read or commented on, and that could be a great point for a discussion, and try and form that personal connection with them and see if you are a good fit to work together. So the second tip is to prepare your space. So video interviews give a great insight into your personal life because the interviewers can actually see what is happening on your background. And it is in our human nature to make assumptions about the person depending on how their home looks like. So make sure your background is clean and tidy. The more plain it is, the better. And make sure you have a good lighting so the interviewers can see you really well. Also, try and keep your camera at the eye level to get an effect of you looking straight to the interviewer, and it will also help to avoid any strange angles of yourself. So the third tip is to practice. So talking to a camera is a bit more difficult than it seems, so you need to do some practice beforehand. One of the most important things to remember is you need to be looking directly to the camera when you're talking to your interviewers, rather than looking at them on the screen. It is actually quite difficult to do, especially in the beginning and if you have never spoken to the camera before. But it is extremely important to keep a good eye contact during your interview. So one of the tricks that you can use is to put an arrow type sticky note just pointing at your camera. If you're using a computer camera, for example, that will remind you where to look during the interview. So one of the good things about video interviews is that you can have your notes around and the interviewers will never know. But regardless whether you have your notes or not, make sure you practice beforehand. So another tip for job interview during coronavirus outbreak is to ask some specific questions in regards to the timelines of the hiring process. How would the onboarding process look like if you start with the company before the outbreak is over? And would the position be remote until the outbreak is over, or if they would rather delay the start date until everything is back to normal? So this will give you a little bit better understanding and insight and a bit more clarity as to where you'll stand and what the next steps are. But be prepared that companies might not be able to answer these questions at least straight away, as what is happening right now are extraordinary circumstances, and companies are also trying to navigate this time the same way as you do. And as you would do in the normal interview, make sure to thank the interviewers for their time and the opportunity, and make sure to say that you are really interested and would love to work with them and be a part of their company. So it is important to reiterate that, especially in the video interviews, because video tends to eat up our emotions and our tone of voice. So if you speak in your normal tone of voice, even when you sounds exciting, that might not come across as exciting as you would want it to be. So just to avoid any doubt, make sure to reiterate and say that you'd love to have an opportunity to work with them. And if you guys are just in the beginning or your job search, make sure you download my 5 simple steps to enhance your CV checklist, so your CV is spot on and you will definitely get through to the interview stage. I will leave a link in the description box below for you guys to download it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and you can go and implement some or all of these tips before your video interview. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell to not miss any other videos. Keep yourself and your loved ones safe, especially during this time, and I wish you guys all a great day, great week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!